You guys, I learned something incredible in the Bible today. So let's do a little Bible study of when Jesus walked on water. So in John chapter 6, we read about how Jesus, after feeding the 5,000 people with 2 fishes and 5 loaves of bread, he told his disciples to take the boat and go ahead of him over the Sea of Galilee. Now here is where things get tricky, because how would Jesus get across the Sea of Galilee if he didn't have a boat? Like, how would he get across? Would he just walk on water all of a sudden? Yes. This is when Jesus decided to walk on water, and he didn't just do this for nothing. He did this to prove something. Because in the Old Testament, it states that only God can walk on water. As we read in Job chapter 9. In verse 8, it says, "He alone stretches out the heavens and treads on the waves of the sea." And so Jesus walking on water was another way of saying that I am God in the flesh. And you guys, it gets even better. Check this out. Because not only does he prove this with his actions, but when the disciples were trying to cross the Sea of Galilee, they started struggling because the storm that night was way too strong. So when they notice something walking on water, they start to panic because they think it's a ghost. They think Jesus is a ghost. And so here is when Jesus says, "Do not be afraid. It is I. It is I." Now, what is so special about that response? If we read his response in Greek or in Hebrew, he is using the phrase ego eimi. I don't know how to pronounce that right, but it means I am, which is the same phrase God uses in Exodus chapter 3 verse 14, where God said to Moses, "I am who I am." I am who I am is the name of God. And so Jesus is referring to himself as God in that very moment. And hold on, I am not finished yet, because the cherry on top in the story is what the disciples and the storm represents. In the Bible, they often refer to the Great Tribulation in the Revelations to a storm. And in Jeremiah 37, it describes how the tribulations is a time of trouble for Israel. Now, who was in trouble in this storm? The disciples. And the disciples, they symbolize us, they symbolize Israel, and how the church is in deep trouble until Jesus comes. And all of a sudden, Peter starts walking on water too. And then he says to Jesus, "If it is truly you, let me come to you on the water." Now Peter, he represents the church and our faith. Because it all goes well for Peter when he walks on water until he starts looking at the storm around him. And then he starts to worry, he starts to get scared, and he sinks. Just like us, many of us are not stable in our faith in God. And so many of us, we focus so much on the situations around us these days, and so we sink. The lesson here is that as long as we keep our eyes on Jesus, we can do the impossible. We can walk on water just like Peter did before he started looking at the storm. We can start walking on water if we keep our faith strong. But if we are like Peter and we look at the storm, we look at the situations around us, the problems, we will sink. But the thing is that, yes, Peter was sinking, but who was there to pick him up? That was Jesus Christ. So when our faith weakens, when we start to doubt, and when we start to let the tribulation get onto us, Jesus is right there to pick you back up. And so if you're ready to stand in faith and be an ambassador in Christ, just know that Jesus will always be by your side. And he will calm the storm because he is God. Period. That was the Bible study of today. Now go and check out the latest episode on my YouTube. God bless you guys.